Good afternoon. As Marshal of the University of Chicago, it is my honor to welcome you to the 527th convocation of the University of Chicago and the presentation of diplomas to the graduates of the Division of the Social Sciences. Let me now introduce the Dean of the Social Sciences Division, David Nierenberg. Please be seated.
This morning, President Zimmer conferred degrees on 137 students who have completed programs of advanced studies in the social sciences. This afternoon, my colleagues and I have the honor to recognize your achievements individually by presenting you with the diplomas and hoods of the University of Chicago. Today, we celebrate your accomplishments. But today, we also mark the culmination of our own work as a faculty in the social sciences. In recognizing these graduates of our programs, we also reflect upon our own accomplishments as teachers, consultants, directors, advisors. And each year, we honor one of our member, upon nomination by our students with the Faculty Award for Excellence in Graduate Teaching. We are pleased to recognize one of our faculty members today. Let me introduce Professor Kathy Cohen from the Department of Political Science to present the award.
Linda Zerilli is a brilliant and innovative scholar of feminist and political theory and continental philosophy. She is revered for her intelligence and incisive writing. But as much as she is admired for her research, she is also deeply respected for her generosity to and care for graduate students. Known across campus for creating an energizing and inclusive classroom environment, she practices a collaborative pedagogy that motivates students to higher levels of thinking and writing. Outside of the classroom, she works tirelessly to create institutions where students can build community and find support as they work to refine their scholarship. She serves as a mentor to students throughout their careers, shaping not just their thinking, but also their lives. Dean Nierenberg, I have the honor to present Linda Zerilli for the Faculty Award for Excellence in Graduate Teaching and Mentoring.
A brilliant and incisive scholar of feminist and political theory, Linda Zerilli models for students the pursuit of deep intellectual inquiry while working to build a more expansive and inclusive intellectual community.
It is my privilege to introduce Professor Amanda Woodward, who will deliver the remarks. Professor Woodward is the William S. Gray Professor in Psychology and the college. She earned her doctoral degree in 1992 from Stanford University and joined our university in 1993. She left to join the faculty at the University of Maryland in 2005, but returned to the University of Chicago in 2010. Where she has served as Chair of Psychology and as Deputy Dean for Faculty Affairs in the Division of the Social Sciences. Professor Woodward is the founder and director of the Infant Learning and Development Laboratory and the author of many articles on the psychology of children. Her research has yielded fundamental insights into infants' social understanding and the processes of conceptual development early in life. More generally, she explores theory of mind, cognitive development, and imitation. Her work has been recognized with many awards, including Best Article from the Journal of Cognition and Development, the Anne L. Brown Award for Excellence in Developmental Research, the APA Boyd McCandless Award for Early Career Contribution to Developmental Psychology, and the John Merck Scholars Award. She is a fellow of the American Academy of Arts and Sciences, the Association of Psychological Science, and the American Psychology Association. Professor Woodward.
Hello, everyone. I want to start by saying that it's a really wonderful honor for me to be sharing this day with you. You've now achieved something truly unusual in human experience, and that is a graduate degree in the social sciences. So I want to say congratulations to you all, and to the parents and the partners and the families and the dear friends who've made it possible for you to get to this point. Now, I study human development, as Dean Hall said, and so the metaphors that I have for understanding the significance of today's events come from thinking about how capacities are formed in ontogenetic time, that is, the time during which an individual comes to maturity, and as capacities originate over generations as knowledge is passed down from older to younger thinkers. So I want to begin by thinking about the intergenerational piece. I've worked with graduate students as a professor for nearly 23 years, and that's 23 years of new students arriving, eager, a little clumsy, wide-eyed, and 23 years of savvy, cynical graduates walking briskly and resolutely away from me to whatever is next. And it's poignant to watch them go. It's poignant to watch you go today. And as I stand here, being left behind again, I ask myself, why do I do this? What's the point? Well, there's lots of reasons, of course, but I think the best reason has to do with the central goal of being a scholar, which is to create new knowledge. As the university's motto famously says, let knowledge grow from more to more. And it turns out that one of the best ways to increase knowledge is by putting it in the hands of the next generation and letting them run with it. And I'm going to give you an example from developmental psychology. I'm going to do a couple of these today. And I do it not because I'm thinking of you as children, but because in my work, children tell us something very deep and essential about what it is to be a human thinker. So I want to be sure you understand that. So let's take an example from children's language learning to illustrate the point about how we grow knowledge. Language transmission is in most cases a well-oiled machine. Parents provide very rich models of the language to be learned, and children seem to soak it up effortlessly. But under less ideal circumstances, the important and hard work that young learners do becomes more evident. So I'm going to talk about one of those less ideal circumstances. Consider the case of a child who grows up hearing essentially no language because she is deaf, and because she's the only deaf person in her family and community, and her family lacks access to resources for deaf education. Historically, this was the case for the vast majority of children born deaf. It is still the case for many children today. And children in this situation do something remarkable. They develop ways of communicating using gesture. They solve the problem of communicating. And if they are able to come into contact with other deaf people, that group converges on something like a very simple language. It has words, it has some simple sentence forms. And this kind of miraculous event in the birth of a new language actually happened in the late 1970s in Nicaragua when a new school for the deaf was established for the first time. People came together and invented a very simple language. But the real magic happened when the next generation of students came to the school. Those students, these younger, wide-eyed, eager students, took the rudimentary beginnings of a language and they ran with it. They introduced innovations in grammatical complexity and compositional meaning, creating a language that was much more rich and generative than the original. And ultimately, these young learners far surpassed their mentors in terms of the creative and expressive power that they achieved. So this is more or less what I'm expecting from all of you, right? And indeed, in your time here, many of you have begun to do just that. I fully expect that you will build insights well beyond what we, your teachers, can conceive. You'll take ideas and approaches that you got here, and you'll apply them to new problems in academia and beyond academia, in industry and work in nonprofit organizations and in government. And your relatively pretty young minds will create something richer, more generative, and more powerful than what we, your mentors, can achieve on our own. Now, you might reasonably say that this seems like a tall order. It's a lot to ask of people who've just done the Herculean work of writing and defending dissertations and theses. It probably seems like you've just gotten to the top of a very, very tall mountain, and you have. But this is only the beginning of what you will achieve in your lives and your work. So, how has your time at the University of Chicago equipped you for this challenge? And probably, almost certainly in many ways, and I'm going to comment on just one of them. Now, I don't know the details of all of your lives over the last few years, But I am pretty certain that in your time here, you have encountered argument, passionate disagreement, and diversity of opinion. Right? This is the air we breathe at Chicago. The open expression of diverse views in the context of serious, vigorous debate. It's not just recreational activity here, it's the expression of a core value of this university. And so being who I am, I turn to children's experience with language as a metaphor for understanding the value of living among diverse and sometimes discordant voices. So, you may have heard that speaking more than one language has well-known benefits for thinking. People who grow up fluently bilingual, as compared to those who speak only one language, have stronger cognitive abilities in many respects. But not everyone has the benefit of full native mastery of more than one language. And it turns out that even if you haven't fully mastered another language, contact with diverse languages also has important implications for thinking and learning. So I'm going to illustrate with a study about communicative skill in young children that happens to have been conducted by Samantha Fan. Those of you in the MAPS program will know Samantha, along with her colleagues Zoe Liberman, Boaz Kesar, and Katie Kinsler. Now in this study, children sat across the table from an experimenter, and between them was an array of objects, including 3 cars of varying sizes. And the experimenter just reached out her hand and said to the child, "Can you give me the small car?" But there was a trick, because it's a psychology experiment, there's always a trick. And the trick was that the experimenter could only see 2 of the objects. There was an obstruction, and the children could detect this. They could see that the experimenter could see 2 of the cars, and they could see all 3. In fact, the experimenter couldn't see the smallest one. So the children had to reason. When she asks for the small car, she's asking for the one that looks to be medium from my perspective, not the true smallest car. This is called a perspective-taking task, and it's famously difficult for young children. It's even difficult for adults. And what Fan and her colleagues found was that children who were not themselves bilingual, but who lived in places where they had contact with multiple languages, outperformed children who lived in monolingual environments, who didn't have that kind of contact. So this study teaches us that when the situation requires you to think hard about others' view of a situation, how that view differs from your own, and how to bridge the gap productively, experience hearing diverse voices gives you a leg up. My students and I have found similar patterns in children's openness to learning from other people. Little children, it turns out, are depressingly chauvinistic. They strongly prefer to learn from people who are very like themselves. And this means that when toddlers from English-speaking homes encounter new information, for example, how to use a toy in a new way that's offered either by an English-speaking or a Spanish-speaking adult, they tend to ignore the information that's offered by the Spanish speaker. They miss out on learning something. But it turns out that this tendency depends on the diversity of the neighborhoods in which they live. Solidly monolingual children who happen to live in neighborhoods like Hyde Park, where in the space of a block, walking down the street, you'll hear English, Spanish, Polish, Chinese, any number of languages, are open-minded. They're happy to learn what the foreign language speaker is offering them. So, back to you. You can't help but encounter diverse voices when you work in the social sciences. A focus on human life and human societies unites us, but there are myriad ways, of course, in which social scientists engage these topics, spanning ethnography, archaeological analyses, formal theory, computational modeling, laboratory experiments, and neuroscience, to name just a few. And there are certainly disagreements. Just as people are sometimes thoughtlessly derogatory about speakers of languages that are foreign to them, so too, social scientists can at times fail to see the value in modes of scholarship that are different from their own. Even so, the sheer fact of coming up against different viewpoints and different approaches, even if you don't master them, and even if you don't particularly like them in the moment, I think can have an effect like contact with speakers of diverse languages. I think it sets the stage for downstream implications for the development of your thinking. Now, in your graduate work, you've gained disciplinary expertise. You've learned what it is to be an ethnographer, an economist, a historian, a political theorist, a demographer, an experimental psychologist, and so on. And this is, of course, an essential piece of what you're going to take with you into your future work. But at the same time, having come of age in the social sciences at the University of Chicago, I predict that you also have the strong potential to become undisciplined. You have a sense of where to go when you need to find new approaches that can take your scholarship and professional work to the next level, and how to productively engage in discussions across viewpoints and disciplines and communities. And it's for this reason that I have every confidence in your ability to do work that continues to open new ground, and critically work that will indeed enrich human life. So to close, on behalf of my colleagues, those of us being left behind today, let me say that it's been our pleasure and our honor to work with you. You've enriched our scholarship, you've enriched our lives. We're proud of you, and we can't wait to see what you do next.
At this time, in the favoring presence of the congregation here assembled, the chairs of the several departments and programs, or their appointed representatives, will present the recipients of diplomas to the Dean of the Division. A representative from the Committee on International Relations will now present to the Dean the recipients of the degree of Master of Arts in International Relations.
Dean Nurnberg, these students have completed the program of study prescribed by the faculty of the Committee on International Relations. On behalf of the faculty of the Committee on International Relations, I now have the honor to present them as recipients of the degree Master of Arts.
You have successfully completed a program of study in the Committee on International Relations. I now present you with the diploma of the University of Chicago.
Winston Chilton Gregory Berg. Patrick Burke. Aaron Michael Drews. Mohammed Zuhad Akhtar Hyde. Ethan Kim. Lucy Michelle Laban. Christine Efwa Ohenawa. Anamika Dia Patel. Christopher William Ray. Sanique Smythe. Bainam Ben Talablu. Michael Thrush. Allison Marie Weiss. Suhei Wong. Ming Chok Wilson Yoon. Nanshi Tseng.
The Deputy Director of the Center for Middle Eastern Studies will now present to the Dean the recipients of the degree of Master of Arts in Middle Eastern Studies.
Dean Nierenberg, these students have completed the program of study prescribed by the faculty in the Center for Middle Eastern Studies. On behalf of the faculty in the Center for Middle Eastern Studies, I now have the honor to present them as recipients of the degree of Master of Arts.
You have successfully completed a program of advanced study in Middle Eastern Studies. I now present you with the diploma of the University of Chicago.
Nikita Bizrukov. Catherine Diane Brown. Michael Dolan. Rachel J. Farrell. Sarah Sami Hilali. Malgorzata Maria Wabno. Emily Christina Little. Ida Sophia Nitter. Akhil Sanjay Shah. Joel Alfred Veldkamp. Marshall Allen Watson.
The Faculty Director of the Master of Arts program in the Social Sciences and Deputy Dean of MA programs in the Social Sciences Division will now present to the Dean the recipients of the degree of Master of Arts in the Social Sciences.
Dean Nierenberg, these students have completed the program of study prescribed by the faculty in the Master of Arts program in the Social Sciences. On behalf of the faculty in the Social Sciences Division, I now have the honor to present them as recipients of the degree of Master of Arts.
You have successfully completed a program of advanced study in the social sciences. I now present you with the diploma of the University of Chicago.
Raleigh Alvis Barrett. Jill Bukala. Samuel Cahill. Larry James Carrillo. John Cataldi. Chao-Chi Chu. Sujin Cho. Marion James Cozy. Scott Walter Danielson. Michelle Farley. David Kelly Frappier. Antonio Gaetano Joya. Maximilian Benjamin Goldman. Amanda Bernadine Graff. Elizabeth L. Huppert. Frank Felipe Ibarra. Ryan Jeffrey Lawrence. Yi Luo. Megan Melissa McCammer. Andrew R. Moeller. Luke Nathaniel Perez. Lindsay Midori Pettit. Jenny Chu. Candice Burr Keatham. Ian Nicholas Ramdeen. Marcelina Gladys Schaefer. Deborah Marie Smetana. Caitlin Angela Spiar. Paul Anthony Thomas. Theodore Jeffrey Vocal. Jeffrey Joseph Yoza, Jr. Ling Zhang.
A representative from the Department of Anthropology will now present to the Dean the recipients of the degree of Doctor of Philosophy in Anthropology.
Dean Nierenberg. Each of the students I now present has attained scholarly distinction in advanced studies and has prepared a dissertation which contributes to knowledge in a particular field of research. On behalf of the faculty in anthropology, I don't speak in there, in anthropology, I now have the honor to present them as recipients of the degree of Doctor of Philosophy.
You have successfully completed a program of advanced study in anthropology. I now present you with the diploma and the hood of the University of Chicago and welcome you to this ancient and honorable company of scholars.
Frederick Ketchum, Situated Problems, Ethics, and Pharmaceutical Enhancement in Contemporary Germany. Jana Rubin, They are not just bodies. Memory, Death, and Democracy in Post-Franco Spain. Joseph J. Sosa, Homophobia is a Crime, an ethnography of a political demand. Dean Nierenberg. The student I now present has attained scholarly distinction in advanced studies and has prepared a dissertation which contributes to knowledge in a particular field of research. On behalf of the faculty in the Committee on the Conceptual and Historical Studies of Science and the Department of Anthropology, I have the honor to present him as recipient of the degree of Doctor of Philosophy.
You have completed successfully a program of advanced study in conceptual and historical studies of science and anthropology. I now present you with a diploma and the hood of the University of Chicago and welcome you to this ancient and honorable company of scholars.
Francis Allen McKay, Homo Eudaimonicus, Affects, Biopower, and Practical Reason.
The chair of the Department of Comparative Human Development will now present to the dean the recipient of the degree of Doctor of Philosophy in Comparative Human Development.
Dean Nierenberg, the student I now present has attained scholarly distinction in advanced studies and has prepared a dissertation which contributes to knowledge in a particular field of research. On behalf of the Faculty of Comparative Human Development, I now have the honor to present him as the recipient of the degree of Doctor of Philosophy.
You have successfully completed a program of advanced study in comparative human development. I now present you with a diploma and the hood of the University of Chicago and welcome you to this ancient and honorable company of scholars.
Jonathan Anthony Madrano, Mia Inki Ni Gawa Beam In Niso, Issei Kahiya, Cultural Amalgamization, the Transformation and Expression of Spirituality and Identity in the Native American Urban Context.
A representative from the Department of Economics will now present to the dean the recipients of the degree of Doctor of Philosophy in Economics.
Dean Nierenberg, each of the students I now present has attained scholarly distinction in advanced studies and has prepared a dissertation which contributes to knowledge in a particular field of research. On behalf of the faculty of the Department of Economics, I have the honor to present them as recipients of the degree of Doctor of Philosophy.
You have successfully completed a program of advanced study in economics. I now present you with a diploma and hood of the University of Chicago and welcome you to the ancient and honorable company of scholars.
Jonathan James Adams, Transitions in Long-Run Economic Growth. Philip Oliver Barrett, Reputation and Sovereign Default. Martin Alberto Baraja, Essays in Macroeconomics. Sarah Patricia Ferreira Moreira, firm dynamics, persistent effects of entry conditions, and business cycles. Nancy Ann Hammond, improved child mortality and the decline in fertility in Britain, 1841 to 2005. Gunnar Hines, Essays in International Trade. Sarah Allison Gordon Camasaro, Essays on the Economics of Children's Education and Health. Hyun Lee, Quantitative Impact of Reducing Barriers to Skilled Labor Immigration, the Case of the U.S. H-1B Visa. Alexander James McKay, The Structure of Costs and the Duration of Supply Relationships. Maria Ignacia Mercado Albornoz, Essays in Competition in Energy Markets. Sihun Nam, Tariff Coordination in Free Trade Agreements and Customs Unions. Ipe Shibata, Essays on Labor Market Dynamics. Anushri Lalitha Subramaniam, Essays on the Economics of Healthcare Innovation. Raluca Mihaela Ursu, The Power of Rankings, Quantifying the Effects of Rankings on Online Consumer Search and Purchase Decisions. Yang Tzu, Essays in Behavioral and Experimental Economics.
The Chair of the Department of History will now present to the Dean the recipients of the degree of Doctor of Philosophy in History.
Dean Nierenberg, each of the students I now present has attained scholarly distinction in advanced studies and has prepared a dissertation which contributes to knowledge in a particular field of research. On behalf of the faculty in the Department of History, I have the honor to present them as recipients of the degree of Doctor of Philosophy.
You have successfully completed a program of advanced study in history. I now present you with the diploma and the hood of the University of Chicago and welcome you to this ancient and venerable company of scholars.
Susanna Marie Engstrom, Theater for the City, Professionalism and Cultural Democracy in Minneapolis, 1946 to 1976. Christopher David Fletcher, Understand, Delight, and Obey, Religious Thought and the Letter Form, circa 1030 to 1200. Leah Daphne Goldman, Art of Intransigence, Soviet Composers and Art Music Censorship, 1945 to 1957. Tessa Murphy, The Creole Archipelago, Colonization, Experimentation, and Community in the Southern Caribbean, 1700 to 1796. Terry Ann Scott, Don't Fail to See This, Race, Leisure, and the Transformation of Lynching in Texas.
The Chair of the Department of Political Science will now present to the Dean the recipients of the degrees of Master of Arts and Doctor of Philosophy in Political Science.
Dean Nierenberg, these students have completed the program of study prescribed by the faculty in the Department of Political Science. On behalf of the faculty in the Department of Political Science, I now have the honor to present them as recipients of the degree of Masters of Arts.
You have successfully completed a program of advanced study in political science. I now present you with the diploma of the University of Chicago.
Jasmine Helene Benjamin. Jennifer Marcella Jackson. Dean Nierenberg, each of the students I now present has attained scholarly distinction in advanced studies and has prepared a dissertation which contributes to knowledge in a particular field of research. On behalf of the faculty in the Department of Political Science, I have the honor to present them as recipients of the degree of Doctor of Philosophy.
You have successfully completed a program of advanced study in political science. I now present you with the diploma and hood of the University of Chicago and welcome you to this venerable and honorable company of scholars.
Alexandra Bass. Defining Invisible Problems, the intersection of politics and science and American public opinion about climate change. Joseph Andrew Ford, Funerary Practices and Political Succession, 3 Regime Types. Allison Patterson Harris, Who's on the Bench? Political Implications of Judicial Characteristics and Judicial Selection Methods in the U.S. Stephen Klein, The Work of Politics, Radical Democracy, Political Economy, and the 20th Century Welfare State. Ethan Victor Porter, The Consumer Citizen.
I will now present to the Dean the recipients of the degree of Doctor of Philosophy in Psychology. Dean Nuremberg, each of the students I now present has attained scholarly distinction in advanced studies and has prepared a dissertation which contributes to knowledge in a particular field of research. On behalf of the faculty in the Department of Psychology, I have the honor to present them as recipients of the degree of Doctor of Philosophy.
You have successfully completed a program of advanced study in psychology. I now present you with the diploma and hood of the University of Chicago and welcome you to this ancient and honorable company of scholars.
Aaron Jenner Cable. Circadian influences on the functional regulation of the reproductive and immune systems of Siberian hamsters. Hodinus Sangoris. Courtney Amber Philippi. From action to abstraction, the development of early social cognition. Stephen Joseph Gray. Transcranial direct current stimulation and episodic memory retrieval. Serena Close. Operation and interaction of the descending control and ascending sensory pathways in audition. Dean Nuremberg, the student I now present, has attained scholarly distinction in advanced studies and has prepared a dissertation which contributes to knowledge in a particular field of research. On behalf of the faculty in the Department of Psychology and in the Booth School of Business, I have the honor to present him as recipient of the degree of Doctor of Philosophy.
You have successfully completed a program of advanced study in psychology and business. I now present you with the diploma and hood of the University of Chicago and welcome you to this ancient and honorable company of scholars.
Hiroki Kotabe. Essays on the Psychology of Perceptual Disorder and Naturalness. A representative from the Department of Sociology will now present to the Dean the recipients of the degree of Doctor of Philosophy in Sociology.
Dean Nuremberg, each of the students I now present has attained scholarly distinction in advanced studies and has prepared a dissertation which contributes to knowledge in a particular field of research. On behalf of the faculty in the Department of Sociology, I have the honor to present them as recipients of the degree of Doctor of Philosophy.
You have successfully completed a program of advanced study in sociology. I now present you with the diploma and hood of the University of Chicago and welcome you to this ancient and honorable company of scholars.
Piper Elizabeth Coutinho Sledge, with a dissertation entitled Embodying Gender Through Cancer, Medical Interactions and the Production of Appropriately Gendered Bodies. Christopher Michael Grazio, with a dissertation entitled Venues, Locating Social Context. Daniel Mifflin Kimmel, The Process of School Violence. Mu Chang Lin, 3 essays on remarriage. Misha Teplitsky, Judgments of Scientific Quality and Their Effects on Published Knowledge and Its Diffusion. Alicia Jean van der Wusse, assisted reproduction in Germany and the United States, regulating the family and negotiating conceptions.
It's a privilege, but a daunting one, to have this opportunity to address a few more words at you this momentous moment in which you stand at the threshold of a new phase of your lives. Anthropologists call such moments liminal, from Latin limen, threshold, which has a very different meaning in psychology. The great University of Chicago anthropologist Victor Turner dedicated his scholarly life to the rituals that accompany such moments, rituals of what he called betwixt and between. In the spirit of Chicago anthropology, let's take a quick look at the ritual you're undergoing at this very moment. It's a highly formal performance marked by ceremonial entry into and exit from a quasi-sacred space, repetition of ritual formulas, and of course, the wearing of liturgical vestments. Those vestments, as I told you already, indeed many aspects of this ritual have roots stretching down into the Middle Ages. Your gowns, hoods, caps, tassels, and titles have all accumulated meaning over centuries. Some of that meaning you've already heard expressed in the formula you've had invoked over and over you today, welcome you to the membership in an ancient and honorable company of scholars. Today's ceremonies don't merely transfer to you a transcript or a professional credential, they usher you into a collective intellect, a community, one might even say a collective soul. That community includes everyone who has ever, from when universities first appeared in the 12th century until today, everyone who has ever experienced the discipline of a faculty, sometimes a severe discipline to be sure, and emerged with the degree of master or doctor. Of course, not all those degrees have come from the University of Chicago, just the best ones. But all have shared the common ideal of subjecting opinion, prejudice, authority, dogma, and expedience to the test of critical thought. As you know, that test is not an easy one. The ancient Greeks used to say, it's been Latin all day, but now it's Greek, that one must suffer into learning. It rhymes in Greek, pathein, mathein. Many resources, material, intellectual, and emotional, are required to join this honorable company. One among those many resources is time, by which I mean not only the considerable time it takes to get an MA or a PhD, but more importantly, the special sensibility toward time I talked about earlier, the kind of thinking you've been doing this past few years requires. The ability to set aside the constant calls, the world around us, to step out of the short-term demands of the immediate present and to dwell in the longer term of an impossibly complex field or difficult problem. Today's ceremony marks your departure from that special space of thought, a space in which even, as I said earlier, the architecture constantly reminds us that the time scales of inquiry and research in the university are somehow different from those of the everyday world. No matter what road you take, when you process out of those doors in a moment, you will enter a world whose clocks tick to a different rhythm, a world where the rumbling of the present feels louder and sometimes threatens to fill the space of thought. I don't want to delay your entry into that world any further, but as you enter it, I remind you only of the obligation that comes with being part of our ancient and honorable company. You, your families, your faculty, indeed society as a whole, have all made enormous sacrifices so that you could step outside of time and gain the power to question, and if necessary, to transform the convictions and certainties of the present. As you step out of today's ritual and back into the flow of worldly time, wearing your medieval gowns, mortar boards, and hoods, your obligation is never to forget that power and to use it whenever the world needs it most. As for me, it's not my obligation, but rather my honor, my privilege, and yes, my joy to thank you for having chosen to join with us in our community of inquiry, to congratulate you on behalf of the Division of Social Sciences and the University of Chicago, and to lead our procession back into a world that awaits and needs you. Thank you. Congratulations. Good luck.
This concludes the awarding of diplomas in the Division of the Social Sciences in the 527th Convocation of the University of Chicago.